if you agree with the free software movement, then quote open source unquote is your enemy. What I mean by this is that supporters of the free software movement who want software freedom for the users of computers, they should never say quote open source unquote, because it is actively harmful to the goals of the free software movement. Basically, whenever you say quote open source unquote, you are basically pushing an idea that in a way opposes the values of freedom. It's not necessarily against freedom, but it doesn't talk about freedom either. So, because the quote open source unquote does not talk about freedom, so therefore for you to say that term to refer to the software that you're talking about means that you are actively hurting the cause. So if your intention and your goal is to spread freedom by supporting the movement, being a part of the free software movement, then saying the wrong term it is against your goal, basically. It's not useful at all. There might be situations where someone hasn't heard of or doesn't know what the free Libre software is. So someone who agrees with the goals of the free software movement and the values and the philosophy, they might in that situation feel that it is appropriate to use the term that the people might be more familiar with. But in such a situation, saying the wrong term is the exact opposite of what you should be doing. If the people don't know about free software and the philosophy of software freedom, then is it not your goal as someone who believes in the free software movement, the cause, is it not your job to tell the people about the free software? Never use the term quote open source unquote. I only ever use it when I talk negatively about it, such as in this speech. So the only time you should ever say that term is when you explain why not to use it in general language. Never use it because you are giving attention to an idea that is in some sense opposing that the software freedom idea. Basically, the free software movement and their values, they compete for mindshare with the quote open source unquote ideas with most people. If you talk about these software things to people, if you then use the wrong term, you will promote that idea. So the people might, even if so what I'm trying to say is that even if it's your intention to talk about freedom, and you actually like talk about the freedoms, that the 4 freedoms and all that, if you say the wrong term, then you are driving attention away from what you're actually trying to discuss. So it is harmful to talk about the wrong thing. You see, people don't just have an innate understanding for these sorts of things, especially if you're talking to someone who isn't really all that knowledgeable when it comes to software. Especially then, it's even if you mean freedom and you talk about the freedom and you're trying to communicate the values of freedom, if you try and use a wrong term to convey that message, to deliver that message, then the message doesn't get across. Words, they carry meaning, and if you use the wrong words, you are delivering the wrong message. even if it wasn't your intention. So, therefore, the quote open source unquote is your enemy. That is, of course, if you believe in the cause of software freedom as I established at the beginning of this speech. Now, if you don't, then this speech doesn't really concern you. So, for those who care about freedom and intend to spread the message of software freedom, never use that wrong term. Treat it as a curse word, cursing word. Treat it as such. So don't say it. It's a bad word to say. Basically, that's the way to do it. Right. Well, that's that for this speech.